It is so easy to get to the end of a busy work week and look at your to-do list and realize you only got through half of it. This week's episode of The Happy Leader is all about ensuring that you get through the priorities and the values that really matter to you for the week. I'm going to share with you a story about what happened with one of my leaders who stuck to this formula and how it transformed her life, and also some tools and tricks that you can use to help you get really clear today on your top values and priorities and make sure that your calendar matches that. Welcome to The Happy Leader. I'm Amy Sanchez, executive coach to some of the most innovative leaders and teams in Silicon Valley. I'll share stories and tips to help you navigate the most common leadership challenges so you can amplify what matters most: happiness. At the end of last week, after a full week of work, shuttling kids to and from activities, the usual household chores, my husband and I were packing up after a school event, volunteering late night on Friday, and we looked at each other and said, "Where did the time go this week? This week went by so fast." In fact, it's really hard to believe we're almost halfway through the year already. It just seems like when you've got a lot going on, that time can move really quickly. Now, when you're a corporate leader, life is full of emails, texts, people needing you, wanting something from you on top of the personal life that you're trying to build and thrive in. It can feel like time goes by in the blink of an eye. And in this day and age, what's different than what's happened in the past is there's just no end to these requests from work. They come in day, they come in night, they come in on weekdays, they come in on weekends. We're so connected in this day and age. And the downfall is we can get really, really caught up in responding to people's emergencies and requests that we actually forget about our own goals. In today's episode, I'm really going to share with you tools that I use and my clients use to help them protect their time and their calendar. So at the end of the year, they can reflect back on their year and feel really good about the accomplishments they had and knowing that it really laddered up to their core values and priorities. This episode is really about how to move the needle in a very intentional way. First, I'll share with you why it's important to protect your time and calendar. A story that came out of a senior group of women that I worked with who used this tool and was very intentional about protecting their time. And then finally, I'm going to give you some really, really great tools to take away today that will help you not only audit your calendar and figure out how well you're using your time now, but how to protect your time. So let's first start by why it's so important to protect your time as a corporate leader. It is so easy to get swept up in the river of responding to other people's requests. I've seen this happen a lot at companies where leaders get stuck in firefighting mode and they're constantly at the whim of people coming to them needing help solving an everyday problem or solving something that could have been avoided with better planning or communication. And when we get stuck in this firefighting mode and just in respondent mode, it's really hard to take a step back and say, but wait a minute, are we on track to meet the goals that I had set out for myself and my team, or are we just stuck trying to fix things? You don't want to get stuck trying to fix things because then it's really hard to make progress. In order to really get into the place where you can have more confidence that the goals you set and the priorities you set and the values that you have are going to be honored in your day-to-day, it starts with protecting your time and your calendar so that you're really spending time on the things that matter. And therefore, you're attracting outcomes that really ladder up to your core priorities and your core values. This type of proactive approach has a number of benefits, just to name a few. Being more proactive in protecting your time and your calendar allows you to be more productive. So you just get through a lot more during the day without getting swept up into things that you otherwise might not have needed to respond to or help with. This also helps with innovation. When we are so stuck just responding, running, and we're not taking time to just stop and reflect and think, this steals from our ability to be creative and innovative. And so it's important to Have that time to slow down, to let all of the things that you're running across in your day to day come together and create really good ideas for you. And then the third thing, although this isn't the only list, there's a lot of other things, but the other thing I really want to call out is being proactive with protecting your calendar can also contribute to your mental health and wellness. And in this day and age, we know how closely that is tied to productivity, to increased revenue at companies, to decreasing burnout. It seems like every time I open my email, there's a new study that shows how mental health and wellness at the workplace is getting worse, not better. So this is a really great way to just get ahead of that and make sure that you are in a good place as you tackle all the priorities that come across your desk. To really bring this to life, let me share with you a story of how I saw this play out. I have a group of women that I've had the great fortune of working with for the past 2 years. It's a fantastic group of VPs who happen to all be women, and they carve aside about 2 hours every 4 to 6 weeks for us to get together as a group. And they get to connect with like-minded professionals. They get to share their challenges, get inputs, and also I take them through guided exercises. So it allows them the time and space to really think and reflect on what's working and what isn't working. Over the course of this 2 years, one of my leaders who was an inaugural member of this group has been very intentional about looking at the way that she spends her time and her days. And what she learned is she was in this mode of just responding to people as soon as they reached out for help and trying to swoop in and solve their challenges, much like we talk about in a former episode about your empathetic abilities and how that can sometimes lead you to take things on that you otherwise shouldn't. That in combination with really looking at her calendar and how she was spending her time led her to make some pretty significant changes. And she got much better at protecting her time and allocating her time in a way that really laddered up to her top values and priorities. Because that was the other thing that we uncovered through this group. We helped them really get clear on what their top values and priorities are. It seems so simple and it seems like something that we should all know, but we don't often take time to just step back and think about the really important structural things that should determine the way that we act and respond to day-to-day opportunities. So she went through all of these great exercises. And at the end of this, she shared in our most recent meeting that she has made a lot of changes over the past couple of years. She's learned to empower her team to solve problems instead of swooping in and trying to solve them herself. She has become better at discerning urgent needs. And when she truly needs to help, she calls this, is this a 911 or is this a 411? And it's important to learn to know the difference. She also started to schedule her strategic work in the morning because what she realized is she has more energy in the morning and she's more creative in the morning. She had a conversation with her admin and asked her admin to help her put strategic work in the morning and connection meetings in the afternoon. And she's found that this has been really, really effective for her. So a number of positive changes that she's seen. The result of this is she's starting to get her time back. She's starting to be able to devote more time to her family and things she's passionate about outside of work, as well as bringing her team's performance to a higher level because now they are more empowered. So we're really seeing win-win-win across the board. All it took for her to make these impactful and meaningful changes in her work and life were carving out 2 hours every 4 to 6 weeks to reflect and identify changes that she needed to make. Now, you don't even need to put in that much time. Gosh, your world could change pretty significantly if you went from spending 0 time in reflection and planning to 2 hours every 4 to 6 weeks. But if that feels unrealistic based on where you are today, I'm going to just give you some exercises and tips to help you take that step towards protecting your calendar and ensuring that the way that you're spending your time on the day-to-day is really going to take you to where you want to go professionally and personally. Here's the first thing that I would advise you to do is identify your top values and priorities. Now, to help you with this, I have a free values assessment on my website. Go to swim-against.com. At the very top, you'll see a banner. You can click it, and it will take you through a sequence that will enable you to fill out a free values assessment. And then also, once you fill that out, it will tell you what's working and where you might want to focus your time. But it will really help you determine what are your top values in life. Next, once you're clear on your top values and your top priorities, the next thing to do is take an audit of your calendar and determine where you're currently spending your time. Now, you can color code these to fit these categories. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Here are the 5 categories that you want to color code. Number 1, strategic planning. And this is goal setting and defining objectives. Anything that falls into that category, give it whatever color you assign to it. The second category is execution and decision making. This is work like overseeing projects, evaluating performance, addressing challenges. That's your second bucket. Your third bucket is team management and development. So this is where you're nurturing talent, providing feedback, fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation. Number 4, communication and relationship building. This is where you're involved in update meetings on project deliverables, client meetings, networking. That's your 4th bucket, communication and relationship building. Your 5th bucket is personal growth and reflection. This is time that you spend self-reflecting, looking back on your day or your week, identifying what went well, what didn't go well. Make sure that you incorporate what did go well, because a lot of people make the mistake of just focusing on what didn't go well. And also learning and development. What are the new skills that you want to learn to help you continue to advance in your career and advance as a human? If there's anything else outside of those 5 buckets, just put it in the other category. Now, after you've identified all of your activities in your calendar over the past month, compare where you're spending your time to your ideal mix as a leader. So here's your ideal mix as a leader to really help you move the needle. About 20% of your time should be focused on strategic planning. About 35% of your time should be focused on execution and decision making. About 20% of your time should be spent on team management and development. About 15% of your time should be spent on communication and relationship building. And then about 10% of your time should be focused on personal growth and reflection. Now, if you're listening to this, you can go into the notes section and you'll see these categories, these distributions laid out. As you reflect on your calendar, it's important to know that you give or take 5 to 10% of each of these ratios, depending on the season of your career and changes your company or team is currently navigating, or changes in your life and your needs. But overall, this gives you a best distribution for your time as a corporate leader to really help you move the needle and achieve your personal and professional goals. Number 3, here's my third tip. After you've gone through those 2 exercises, identified values and priorities, taken an audit of your calendar, look at where you're over or under indexing on that ideal mix of activities and use this matrix that I've developed to help determine what to get off your plate. On the x-axis is impact. On the y-axis is priority. You're going to map out all these activities on this matrix. Now, if you get into a low priority, low impact, your bottom left quadrant or corner, these are activities really easy. Just get these off your plate. Eliminate the need for them entirely or delegate to somebody else. Just make sure that if you delegate it to someone on your team, that these really are worthwhile activities. Otherwise, you might just want to deprioritize them for everybody. Then we've got high priority but low impact activities. These are in the top left corner. These are activities like an office move or responding to a micromanager. What you want to do with these activities is to determine how to lessen your involvement here. Then we've got our low priority but high impact. So this is in the bottom right corner. These are activities like hiring, recruitment, networking, conferences, learning. These are things that we easily dismiss. So when push comes to shove, these are usually activities that fall off of our plate and we don't get to. But when you protect your time with these activities, they can really make a big difference, have a really high impact for you. So the key with these activities, the low priority, high impact activities, is to make sure they don't fall off your plate. And then finally, your high impact, high priority activities, the top right of your quadrant. These are the gold activities that you want to be the majority of the things on your calendar. This is where you should be spending the vast majority of your time. Now, go ahead and take a look at the notes and you'll see that matrix there in the notes for you to refer to. And you can start to map things out based on those labels and those quadrants. Once you align your activities to your values and priorities, look for ways to ensure your calendar doesn't get refilled with lower impact and lower priority items. This is where you'll want to have conversations where you need to with the stakeholders who have access to your calendar to share with them your new insights, your priorities, what you've determined where you should and shouldn't spend your time so that together you can achieve the goals that you've laid out. Now, these people that you need to have this conversation with might be your admin. It might be your direct reports. It might be your partner. And perhaps it's your boss. But this is going to be a team effort because you're not the only one probably who is adding things to your calendar. So make sure everybody knows where your head is and what your plan is. Okay, now if you do all the things that I just mentioned, then you are going to see a significant change in where you're spending your time and how productive that you are and how you feel overall. If you wanted some extra credit, here's something else that you can do after you have taken a look at your calendar and made the changes you need to make. When you schedule your activities, make sure that those activities that are more draining for you or taxing for you happen when you have more energy. So there also is a strategy that's important as you think about the time of day that you put each of these activities. One other thing I'm going to give you to think about when you're involved in strategic work or personal development or networking. Remember, we talked about that activity that tends to fall off the calendar that has high impact. When you're involved, when you decide to do those activities, shut down your email, shut down your messenger, silence your phone, do what you need to short of being available for an emergency if the sky is falling. But it's so easy to get distracted by the messages that pop up in our notifications. And if you can give yourself the gift of shutting down those notifications and focusing, you're going to get through things so much faster. There's all this neuroscience about multitasking and how bad it is for productivity. If people really have emergencies, they're going to call you. So don't worry about that. This helps ensure you don't get distracted from the really meaningful work that can easily be hijacked by somebody's 911, which is often a 411. And remember, this is a framework, but life is going to throw you surprises. It's going to throw things at you that you couldn't have planned through this exercise. And give yourself flexibility and grace to make adjustments as needed. This is something you'll probably want to revisit about every 6 months or so to make sure the activities that you have in your calendar continue to ladder up to what's important to you. I've just shared a lot of tips with you, and you can find all of this in the notes. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Everyone who I have worked with, including myself, who has tried this approach and really stuck to it over 12 months, has seen a significant change in the outcomes that they drive and their ease of driving these outcomes. It's pretty incredible when you put this to work, the changes that you're going to see happen in your life. Since those outcomes laddered up to their top values and priority, because remember, that's where we started with number one, they were living the life that they wanted to live. So I hope some of these tips work for you. I hope that you're able to implement them. And as you know, our ultimate goal to keep you operating at your peak and enjoying life is making sure that you're spending time in the right way. That's ultimately going to allow you to be successful and happy. Give it a try and let me know how it goes for you. Thanks for listening to The Happy Leader. If you would like more information about me, Amy Sanchez, and our executive coaching and team leadership services at Swim Against the Current, visit swim-against.com. And if you liked this podcast, Help others who could use the support find it by giving us a rating. Until next time, life is short. Stay happy.